Days of Our Lives spoilers reveal that E.J. DeMira, Dan Feuerigel, and Rachel Blake, Rosalind Gentle, have already had an intense conversation about E.J. keeping quiet that everything that has been going on since the kidnapping. Rachel recently threatened E.J. if he didn't protect her and her family, she would turn him in for his part in Rafe Hernandez, Galen Gehring, kidnapping. E.J. want he to shut up. E.J. knows that they could all go down if Rafe remembers his kidnapping. E.J. is also afraid that Rachel will let his part in this whole kidnapping scheme out, ruining his relationship with Belle Black, Martha Madison, and the cops. E.J. has one dose of the memory serum left, and it has Rachel's name on it. Rachel's attack on him makes him even more determined to keep that crazy woman quiet. E.J. has recently been visited by his son Johnny DeMira, Carson Boatman, who has him completely upset thanks to Roman Brady, Josh Taylor, and Kate Brady, Lauren Koslow. Johnny now knows that E.J. raped his mother, and that is how he was conceived. Today is not the day for Rachel to start on E.J. and threaten him. Rachel is determined to have her way no matter what. Even Kristen has told her to leave Ava Vitali, Tamara Braun, alone, and she refuses. Rachel certainly isn't going to listen to E.J. E.J. may then get the memory serum out and attempt to give Rachel a shot. Kristen may see what is going on and shoot E.J. to protect her mother. Kristen probably doesn't even know what E.J. is doing before she shoots because she tends to act first and ask questions later. If Kristen sees her mother and E.J. struggling, especially if her mother is screaming, there is no doubt that Kristen would shoot him and then try to get to the bottom of things. E.J. will certainly be asking help once he has been shot and may have to wait until Kristen gets things cleaned up. Kristen needs to get her mother out of the way. Hopefully, she can usher Rachel upstairs. Of course that needle has to go as well. Kristen cannot risk her mother being in trouble again. Will Rachel do as she asked? E.J. has finally gotten some help and Kristen has Rachel under control. However, no one has any idea if E.J. will live or not. Will Kristen leave her mother alone while she checks on E.J.? Can Kristen protect her mother while keeping her out of jail? Will E.J. survive the shooting without implicating Kristen in the crime? Part 1. The Calm Before the Storm. Salem was bathed in the glow of the early evening sun, casting longer shadows as the day faded. The air was charged with an energy both palpable and sinister, a tangible anticipation that something momentous was about to unfold. In the Kyriakis mansion, the tension was brewing beneath the casual banter, beneath the clinking of glasses and the sound of laughter. Hidden emotions simmered just below the surface. Kristen DeMira stood quietly in a corner of the grand living room, a glass of red wine in hand, her thoughts a tempest. The recent turmoil that had enveloped her family consumed her, specifically her mother, the formidable and often vulnerable Marlena Evans. Kristen had always felt a fierce protective instinct towards her mother, but recent threats to Marlena extended beyond the usual soap opera drama she was accustomed to. With each passing day, the enemies of the DeMira clan were encroaching closer, and the stakes had never been higher. Meanwhile, E.J. DeMira, her brother and perennial antagonist, reveled in his latest conquest, a business deal that had solidified his hold over DeMira Enterprises. He had become the embodiment of ruthless ambition, and the lengths he was willing to go to secure power left Kristen uneasy. As she sipped on her wine, she spotted E.J. at the center of a gathering, laughing with Victor Kyriakis, celebrating his latest triumph. All in a day's work, E.J. declared with an easy confidence that made Kristen's skin crawl. She could see beyond the bravado, recognizing the volatility that lurked beneath his charming exterior. Where there was power, there were betrayals, and where there were betrayals, Kristen feared for her mother. Kristen leaned against the grand marble fireplace, her mind racing. If only she could keep Marlena safe. But how? Taking a deep breath, she summoned her courage. She decided it was time to confront E.J. and uncover the deeper truths behind his ambition. Part 2. Confrontation at the top. Later that evening, the grand foyer of the DeMira mansion felt more like a battleground than a home. Shadows danced along the walls as the flickering candlelight cast airy shapes. Kristen made her way toward E.J., determined not to let her fears dictate her actions any longer. E.J., she called, her voice steady. The laughter in the room subsided as eyes turned toward her. E.J.'s expression shifted, amusement replaced by curiosity. "Well, if it isn't my beloved sister," he drawled, a smirk playing on his lips. "What a rare treat." "Cut the charm," Kristen snapped, her eyes flashing with indignation. "I'm serious. We need to talk about Mom. EJ arched an eyebrow, stepping closer. What about her? I know you think you're invincible, but you're not as untouchable as you believe. You're making enemies and they're getting closer every day. You can't keep dragging her into your power plays. He scoffed, brushing off her concerns. Mother is resilient. She's faced worse. I assure you, my dealings are well protected. Kristen took a step forward, lowering her voice dramatically. You think you can just play God with everyone's lives. You need to realize that your game is serious. If anyone comes after you, they will not hesitate to use our mother as leverage. EJ's gaze turned icy, his voice low. You don't know what you're talking about, Kristen. You're allowing your emotions to cloud your judgment. Kristen's resolve hardened. No, I am looking out for her well-being, something you've forgotten how to do. Their heated exchange drew the attention of the guests, the atmosphere thickening with tension. A challenge hung in the air between them, begging for a conclusion, a resolution. Careful, sister. You wouldn't want to step out of line, EJ warned, a flicker of menace in his tone. I'm already stepping out of line, Kristen shot back defiantly, and if I have to protect her by any means necessary, I will. A frisson of unease coursed through the gathered crowd, and Kristen caught a glimpse of the fear in her brother's eyes. For a moment, he appeared genuinely rattled. Part 3. The Unexpected Threat. The following week progressed uneventfully, but Kristen remained on edge. A sense of impending doom hung over her, gnawing at her thoughts as she tried to convince herself that her family's dark history wouldn't repeat itself. Yet, the shadows that had engulfed them for generations were shifting. The danger she had sensed bore down upon her with each passing hour. One afternoon, as she visited Marlena at the clinic, a shadowy figure caught her eye while she entered. At first, she dismissed it, but the unease in her gut forced her to pause and glance back. The figure quickly ducked behind a parked car, heart pounding as she sensed a mounting threat. Kristen, Marlena called from her office, her voice layered with concern. Is something wrong? No, Mom. Just thought I saw something, she replied, forcing a smile as she brushed off the sensation. Yet the nagging feeling wouldn't leave. Days turned into nights filled with restless worry. Kristen made it her mission to monitor the activities surrounding her family, reaching out to her contacts in Salon's ring of intrigue. What she unearthed painted a dark picture. Rumors circulated that their family was under surveillance by a mysterious new foe, a rival with ulterior motives that seemed linked back to the past. Each passing day only solidified Kristen's growing fears. She sought out familiar allies, uncovering whispers of a plot unfolding, framed by deceit and betrayal. The threat of violence against Marlena lingered heavily in the air, and it was only a matter of time before it all came to a head. Part 4. A Mother's Love. One evening, Kristen found herself at the Kyriakis mansion, where Victor had hosted a family gathering. She felt more out of place than ever. The faces smiling in genuine camaraderie reminded her starkly of the chaos that shadowed her life. Sipping her drink, Kristen's eyes scanned the room until she caught a glimpse of Marlena seated with Roman, her mother's radiant smile illuminating her features. She approached, attempting to integrate herself into the light-hearted conversation, but her heart raced with anxiety. After all the talk about safeguarding their family, this moment felt impossibly fragile. Mom, Kristen interjected, her voice firm. We need to talk about your safety. I can't shake the feeling that we're being watched. Marlena's expression shifted, concern etching lines across her brow. Kristen, you're being paranoid. We're all family here. We're safe. But Kristen could see it. The shadows lurking behind the smiles, the veiled glances exchanged among their guests, the barely concealed tension. I need you to trust me. Roman chimed in. Kristen's just looking out for you, Doc. Better to be cautious, Marlena sighed, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. I appreciate your concern, sweetheart, but maybe it's time to step back and let the adults handle things. Kristen's heart ached, her protectiveness clashing with her need for her mother's belief in her judgment. No, I won't stand idly by while you're at risk. You mean too much to me to let that happen. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The front door swung open and a gust of wind swept through the room. Kristen's instincts kicked in, her heart pounding as she turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, a man dressed in black, a menacing presence that stole the breath from the room. Kristen Dimera, he declared, eyes glinting with malicious intent. Your family has made some powerful enemies. Part 5. The shot fired, panic erupted in the room, complete chaos as people scrambled for cover. It was unlike anything Kristen had ever witnessed. The air crackled with fear and uncertainty. She instinctively stepped in front of her mother, aware of the danger looming. "Get down," Roman shouted, but Kristen's gaze was locked on the intruder, who had now drawn a weapon. James, a former associate of EJ with a chip on his shoulder, clearly did not care who was in the line of fire. "Kristen, move." EJ's voice boomed, his own fear audible as he rushed toward the chaos. Without further thought, Kristen thrust her body protectively in front of Marlena, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The world slowed down, and she instinctively reached for her own concealed weapon, an option she never thought she'd utilize until now. In that heart-stopping moment, everything seemed to blur. The malevolent figure in the doorway, her mother's terrified face, the camaraderie of family becoming a cacophony of screams. Kristen made a decision that would alter everything forever. A single shot rang out, a deafening crack that shattered the fragile equilibrium of their lives. Yet it was not the figure in the doorway who fell. It was EJ, the bullet tearing through the air and striking him, and he crumpled to the floor. Kristen stood there, heart racing as she struggled to process what had just occurred. The thrill of action coursed through her, but horror crept in as she realized the ramifications of her choice. EJ. Marlena screamed, her voice a blend of shock and anguish, reaching forward, desperate to help. The room erupted into chaos, the wail of sirens on the horizon drawing closer as Kristen felt a chilling realization wash over her. She had acted to protect her mother, to shield her from a threat, but the consequences of her actions were only just beginning to unfold. Part 6. Aftermath ***. Kristen's hands trembled as she held her weapon, the weight of the moment crashing down on her. EJ lay motionless, a pool of blood spreading beneath him, and the horror of her decision sent icy fingers creeping up her spine. The sight of her injured brother was something she would never forget, and her heart ached with the burden of what she had done. "Call an ambulance." Someone shouted, but Kristen barely heard the command. She was entranced by the unfolding reality, guilt flooding her mind. She hadn't just shot the man who had tormented her and her family. She had wounded a brother. Marlena was beside EJ in an instant, desperately trying to determine the extent of his injuries, her maternal instincts igniting as she fought against the rising fears. "EJ, stay with me," she cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. As sirens wailed in the distance, panic enveloped the room. Roman approached Kristen cautiously, his face a mix of shock and understanding. "What have you done?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. I needed to protect Mom," Kristen uttered, her voice shaking as she felt the weight of her justification slipping away. "He's dangerous, Roman. He was going to hurt her, not like this," Roman exclaimed, his frustration growing at the situation. "You can't just shoot your brother. We can't tell them this was self-defense." Kristen's eyes darted toward Marlena, who continued to kneel at EJ's side, her frantic attempts at help a testament to a mother's love overshadowing the chaos. Kristen felt an overwhelming sense of dread ripple through her. As paramedics rushed through the doors, the tension in the room only escalated. Time seemed to stretch infinitely, and Kristen's chest tightened with the overwhelming weight of her decisions. Part 7. Reflection in the Mirror. The stark white walls of the hospital contrasted against the chaos of the previous night, the noise fading into a haunting silence as Kristen sat alone in the waiting room, anxiety clawing at her throat. The medical staff had rushed EJ into surgery, and the uncertainty loomed like a heady fog. Kristen could only replay the events in her mind, a cycle of decisions, emotions, and consequences playing out in an endless loop. What had she done? She felt a wave of disconnection from the woman she had been just days before. Protecting her mother had turned into an act of violence, one that would echo throughout their family. Memories danced through her mind, family dinners, laughter, and joy, now intertwined with fear and violence. "Kristen." Marlena's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, and she looked up, her mother's expression weary and etched with pain. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted to protect you." Marlena knelt down beside her, the weight of the world hanging heavy in her eyes. "You were trying to protect me, but violence isn't the answer. You have to understand that our family has been through so much, and we can't let anger consume us." Tears filled Kristen's eyes as she grasped her mother's hands. "I'm so scared, Mom. What if he doesn't make it? What if I've ruined everything?" In that moment, they were bound together, not just by the love of a mother and daughter, but by the haunting reality of their choices. The bond ran deep, yet the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger. Marlena squeezed Kristen's hands, a testament to her faith in her daughter. "We'll get through this together. I know you made a choice out of love, and that doesn't excuse it, but it also doesn't erase who you are. We'll face the consequences together." Kristen's heart ached at her mother's words, yet a flicker of hope ignited deep within her. "What if I can't take it back? What if he hates me?" "He won't hate you," her mother asserted gently. "If he pulls through this, you'll need to face him, and you'll need to be honest." The truth weighed heavily, but Kristen nodded, her resolve slowly building. She understood that healing wouldn't come easily, it wouldn't come without confronting the mistakes she had made. But her family had always faced adversity head-on. Part 8. The difficult path ahead. Days turned into weeks as Kristen and her family navigated the aftermath of the shooting. As EJ battled for his life in the hospital, the tension surrounding their family began to fracture under the weight of guilt and unresolved emotions. Each visit to EJ's hospital room held its own atmosphere, a dance of uncertainty and hope, a race against time. The repercussions rippled across Salem, with the media keenly following every development. Kristen found herself flooded with reporters asking about her motivations, creating a narrative that didn't reflect the complexities of the situation, the truths embedded in their family history. EJ remained in a fragile state, and if there was any silver lining, it was that he was alive. But the nature of their relationship had forever altered, and Kristen felt the burden of that truth. Each visit felt like confronting a ghost, a reminder of the brother she had hurt and the trust that had shattered in the process. One particularly heavy afternoon, Kristen stood in the doorway of EJ's hospital room, her heart racing as she prepared to enter. The monitors beeped softly, a rhythm that filled the silence with a tense uncertainty. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. "EJ," she called softly, stepping further in, her eyes falling on the bandages that adorned his head. Guilt coursed through her veins as she approached. "I'm here." EJ's eyelids fluttered open, revealing the familiar storm of emotions that she had come to expect from her brother. There was confusion, pain, and perhaps even a hint of anger swimming within those depths. "Kristen," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "What on earth were you thinking?" "I know," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. "I know that I've hurt you, and I can't possibly fix this or take it back, but you need to understand, I did it to protect Mom." "Protect her?" he repeated incredulously, wincing as he shifted slightly. "You could have killed me." Her heart sank further, the anger in his tone weighing heavily upon her. "I know that now. I didn't." She stopped, choked up by her emotions. "All I thought about was losing her. I was scared." EJ's expression softened slightly, the walls he had built around himself beginning to crack. "Killing me won't resolve that fear. I can't believe you would take that kind of extreme action." "It was a moment of panic," Kristen admitted, trembling as she fought back tears. "I just wanted to keep her safe." "That's not how you do it." EJ shot back, pure frustration radiating from him. "What happens when you act out of fear? Do you truly believe this will magically solve our family's problems?" Kristen bit her lip, suppressing the urge to lash out. I don't know, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right." EJ watched her closely, searching for sincerity in her words. "You have to face the consequences of your actions. Family isn't always about love, it's also about accountability." "I know that," she said, her voice breaking. "But please, EJ, I don't want to lose you. I want to help the family heal. I'll make amends, I promise." The silence between them was thick, and in that moment, they both understood the road ahead would be paved with learning, growth, and the pain of reconciling their tumultuous relationship. Part 9. Healing. As time passed, the wounds of the past began to heal, at least on the surface. EJ slowly regained strength and was eventually released from the hospital, but the scars from the shooting remained. The family was forced to confront their turmoil through therapy, healing, and the hard work required to bridge their fractured relationships. Kristen was terrified as they all sat together for family therapy, facing the many shards of pain, confusion, and regret. It was a heavy burden, yet they understood there was no other way if they wished to rebuild their bond. The therapist guided them through the process, asking poignant questions that led to deep revelations. The conversations around vulnerability, fears, and forgiveness helped peel back layers of hurt that had built up over the years. Kristen looked at EJ as they spoke, understanding the depth of their shared history, pain and loyalty enfolded together, echoing through their lives like a lullaby sung by their mother. There was still anger, yes, much was left unsaid. However, for the first time, they felt a flicker of hope beckoning them toward reconciliation. EJ, I'm sorry for what I did, Kristen said one afternoon after they had spent hours discussing their family struggles. I never meant to hurt you. He nodded, a mix of emotions flashing across his features. I know you were scared, Kristen, but you can't let that fear turn you against those you care about. I'm learning, she replied, her voice earnest. And I promise to work on myself. I never want to be that person again. EJ regarded her for a long moment, and after the therapy sessions transformed into open conversations, they found themselves discussing everything from their childhood dreams to the heavy burdens they carried. Slowly, they began to unearth the complexity of their bond, the shared experiences that had defined them as siblings but had also torn them apart. Brick by brick, the walls they had built began to crumble, and as they learned to face the difficult truths alongside one another, they felt a sense of renewal, a sweeping tide of compassion and understanding flooding the space between them. Part 10, Family Rebuilt. Months later, the Dimera family gathered for dinner at the mansion, a celebration long overdue. Laughter echoed through the halls, warmth radiating in the air. The camaraderie that had once been tainted was slowly lifting, the remnants of laughter replacing the heavy shroud of the past. Kristen sat at the table, her heart swelling as she glanced around at her family. They had come such a long way, and the healing had sparked a new beginning. EJ's seat sat beside hers, and their daily exchanges grew lively as they navigated their relationship with a mix of sincerity, warmth, and humor. Okay, let's raise a glass to family, Victor declared as everyone filled their glasses. To family, the others echoed, their voices mingling in a chorus of positivity. As glasses clinked, Kristen allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had feared that one misstep would break them irreparably, but here they were together. In the end, despite the drama and the turmoil that had threatened to pull them apart, love and choice blended in a tapestry of resilience. They understood that they were bound by more than blood. They were bound by choices made and lessons learned, the capacity to forgive, heal, and ultimately rebuild. As she raised her glass, Kristen felt liberation wash over her. The past would never disappear entirely, but it had transformed into something else, an opportunity for growth and a chance to genuinely embrace the meaning of family. Epilogue. A new dawn. As the sun set on Salem, Kristen stared out the window of the Dimera mansion, the sky filled with vibrant hues of orange and red. The dark clouds of the past had begun to dissipate, and the beauty of the moment reminded her of how far they had all come. Her eyes fell on EJ, who chatted with their mother across the table, a reunion of sorts rekindled by a tragedy that had forced them all to face their deepest fears. Kristen felt the weight of her heart lighten as she took a deep breath. In her journey to protect those she loved, she had learned not only the consequences of her actions, but also the invaluable lesson that healing required patience and compassion. Love had the power to heal the deepest wounds, and together they forged their path into the future, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead.